We're going.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. So how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy here.
Yeah, it is.
Snowing in Tokyo, and yesterday it was warm, and I was wearing a t-shirt at some point.
Yeah. No, it's a sign of the times.
Yeah.
I feel it's really coming down.
Yeah, I haven't seen it snow this much in a couple of years, probably.
No.
Yeah.
And that was around December, January, right? And now we're in April, almost.
Yeah. It's
end of March.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we have to stay at home.
Yeah. Well, that's a fun one. Although I don't think I'd go out in this weather anyway.
No.
It's
No, this helps.
Yeah. It's not snowy enough that you want to go play outside.
No.
It's just cold and wet, pretty much. But it's starting to stick on the ground a little bit, so maybe we will get a bit of actual snow outside.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. What's going on, man?
Just coping with the whole thing, I guess. I'm literally climbing on the walls right now, a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I've been home for 4 weeks, basically, working from home.
Wow.
Yeah. So my company was early on this whole, like, not enforced but highly recommended work from home kind of status. And I think I was just like, well, I can be in my pajamas.
Yeah.
That was nice the first day. Then it's been like basically 2 weeks of I would love to see some people.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess you're not so introverted that you like this, because I'm like, yeah, it's just normal life for me. But yeah, that's my dream, is just to be able to work at home and do my thing.
So this is right down your alley then.
Yeah, man, this is normal for me. I think we start full work from home, I think, next week. So after that, I'll probably be a little bit bored being at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy being in my pajamas. So
Yeah.
the problem is, once it's all over, I'm gonna get back to the point where, like, I have to wear clothes again. Like, oh, you mean I can't just wear my boxer shorts outside?
Yeah.
So
Well, you could.
Well, I can, but
But do you think, I was thinking about this quite a bit, actually. Do you think this, I mean, in light of everything else, let's say, however long it takes, we'll get out of this, and Japan and Tokyo will get out of this. Do you think this is like almost like a live first trial and a forced way into kind of showing the possibility of a different lifestyle here?
You know what? I hope we come out of this and we change a few things.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll happen. Like, humans, I think, as a whole, we tend to be very short-sighted in things. So we only do things that in short bursts. We don't think long-term for the most part. Like, even I think you look at some big disasters that we've had in our lifetime.
Yeah.
We go back to the normal way of life pretty quickly.
Yeah, but I think this is normally a disaster, like and please correct me if my assumption is wrong, but that's usually a single event that happens over a short period of time. Then the consequences linger for a certain period of time, right? But this will go on. I've been home for for a month, and they already extended it for the entire next month.
Yeah.
So I think it's rather unique that you have this, like, slow kind of, it's not like a major event that just kicked in.
Yeah.
Everybody eases into it. They find their pace. They get all the tools together. They start to practice on having these phone calls and meetings and working from home. And I think, of course, they've had some struggles, but they get to work on those almost in a live trial kind of. Yeah, it's interesting in a way.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting that, all these companies that, and I'd say especially Tokyo, that say, oh, you can't work from home doing that. Well, apparently we can do it now, right? So that sort of thing, I hope will change a little bit to be a bit more flexible for people, because I think the world has gone to a place where the work-life balance is a little bit like out of whack. You know, it's a bit.
And especially here, you have. I mean, for people who's not that familiar with the sacrifices people are doing for their work in Japan in general.
Yeah.
I mean, many people are like having an hour commute one way.
Yeah.
That's normal stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's like an hour. That's fine.
Yeah, and I tried to explain this to people everywhere I go. Is that if you're working 5 days a week and you're traveling for an hour each way every day, that's 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's 10 hours a week. That's an extra day you're doing just in travel.
Yeah.
And for some people, they love it. They read a book and they're enjoying it. It's their quiet time.
Yeah.
But if you're in Tokyo where you're on ridiculously busy trains and
reading a book is not an option.
Yeah, it's and you know, here people aren't as, they're very respectful, but I've noticed there's a trend where people aren't so much getting up for elderly people or people that are not disabled are sitting in this sort of, you know, disabled seats. Or
Okay.
seats.
I haven't really picked up on that. Yeah.
I see it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Not that I'm trying not to take trains very much anymore. So.
That's what's one of my, like, I used to live here back in 2012.
Yeah.
And now, being back for 4 years now, that was one of the things, like, I'm going to position myself, and I'm in a very privileged situation where I can actually make these kinds of decisions. I understand. Me too. Yeah, I understand that's not, I mean, if you have a family, like, living in the middle of the city might not be your best option, and maybe that's where your office is. But my philosophy was to find a place that was actually within a commuting distance that didn't require me to take the train.
Yeah, exactly.
So I walk to work every day.
Wow.
Rain or shine, snow, even 35 minutes, but it's worth like on so many different levels.
Yeah, and it gives you a moment where you're not being like bombarded by social media, or you know, you're not on Netflix. Yes. You're either listening to music or a podcast, or you're in your own mind. Yeah. You're able to work things out.
Yeah, I don't know how I could trade this away later. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I've grown so used to it. It's been 4 years now. And no, it's going to be difficult for me because it works as an introduction to work. It puts me in this state of mind of going to work, and I get to work on all the things in my head going there and prepare, like slightly plan for the day in my head, and then I'm ready to go when I arrive. Yeah. And as you say as well, I mean, it's quite uncommon. There's pockets in Tokyo where you can actually be alone. And funny enough, my commute is actually through all of those pockets.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, there's almost no people out on the streets for the majority of my walk. So I'm taking a stroll in almost an empty city. There's not a lot of stress, and I get to the office rather de-stressed.
Yeah.
In comparison to getting like in one of those, like where you have two buttocks against your cheeks.
Yeah. Well, you're tall. I'm short. I actually did have buttocks in my cheeks. That was the big problem for me is until I moved to this area. Yeah. I was living near Ikebukuro, and it was, you know, it wasn't directly that far, but there wasn't direct trains to my work, so I had to change trains, and it used to make me insane. Like, I used to get to work wanting to kill people, and that's a bad way to start your day.
That's not optimal.
Yeah. And then coming home at night as well, the trains would be jam-packed, and it just doesn't feel good when you're wedged in a train.
No, I bet.
Yeah.
It gets you off on the wrong foot as well, I would assume.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
coming back and you're like, then you need another almost hour to de-stress when you're actually home. Yeah. So if you're adding that to the whole total day, you have the commute, and then you need to de-stress. Yeah. That's added time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not that's where I think the work-life balance really starts to be an issue and be very one-sided, is that your work is starting to bleed into your personal life, because that hour of de-stressing, or even the hour of the train in very uncomfortable times, I would start associating that with like, if I had a bad day at work, it wouldn't end until I got all the way home, sort of thing, as opposed to, all right, I'm leaving work, all right, it's a bad day, but at least I'm out the door. It's like, all right, well, now I have to get on the train and deal with that.
Yeah. No, I can completely relate, because the thing is, I walk every day, and I have I've had quite a few visitors because everybody wants to come
hello.
visit me. Yeah, no. I mean, actually, I'm not taking credit at all. They're like, so you live in a big apartment in the middle of Tokyo.
Yeah.
I see this as almost like a free kind of great experience to come. So they go like, okay, we'll stay at your place. But especially with family and stuff like that, I'm very, very open with the fact that, okay, I can meet you at a different station, so I actually take the train there after work. But I'm gonna be not really there for the first 30 minutes. So just bear with me. You can talk to each other. Like, especially if my brother and my dad, I'll be like, you'll be social. You can tell me about your day. Just don't freak out about the fact that I'm just like staring away, like into the void, not really being present for the first 30 minutes. I need to decompress.
Yeah, but they're also on holidays, so they've been hanging out all day.
They're 5 beers in.
Yeah. You know, they've been bouncing from bar to bar. Yeah. They're having a good time. You're like, that's hard. It's hard to catch up to people.
It's proven quite a difficulty for me. This whole, and also the aspect that they're on holiday and they're hyped about being here. Yeah. I'm hyped about being here as well, but to a completely different extent. Yeah. And also maybe coming off like a 10-hour work day. Yeah. And a busy train. Yeah. And then you're also, maybe you finish your meeting and you're meeting them at the restaurant at a certain hour. So you rush out of the, like your I wouldn't say stress levels, but your adrenaline and your pulse is already at an elevated level.
Well, I think there is a stress in that is because they're your family, they're on holidays, you know, they don't live here. So it's a whole new thing for them. So you feel responsible to make sure, like, because if they don't arrive or they get lost and then you have to go find them or like whatever those things are, you know, they can't speak Japanese, they can't read like most of the signs. You know, I can't really read most of the signs or speak Japanese, but I can get by enough that I sort of know what's going on. That I don't like that sort of feeling of like, oh no, I feel responsible for them, but I still have that like pull towards work anxiety. So that's tough.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to the situation now and how this might be positive. But I'm curious, since we're talking about this, also the differences between people that are visiting and our situation. Don't you find it quite interesting? And I'm wondering if you had the same experience where you go around your day and you think like, well, I'm not that good at Japanese and I'm not that... I'm still considered a foreigner and I'm not really that integrated into society. And then you have a person, sometimes maybe a first-time visitor as well, that doesn't really know all the customs and how to behave and how to navigate. And you realize that you're basically half Japanese. The way you can actually communicate, you can read some, you converse with people and you realize, okay, this is how I was the first time I arrived on the shores, and now I'm actually that's the first time I got to feel like what level I was at.
Yeah, there's always that. I think it's a nice reminder when people come and visit that when they look at something that you've seen 1,000 times and they're blown away by it. And it's a nice reminder. It's like, oh yeah, I was like that. Yeah. There is a weird sort of thing here that I think happens to most people that live here for a while is that when you first come here, you either on holidays or when you first live here, you're blown away by everything. Yeah. And like things are open late. That's very different in Sydney. You know, like restaurants are open. There's bright lights. I was like a moth to a light in like Shinjuku when I first got here. But after you live here for a while, you start seeing that there are a lot of issues and problems, and it's only once you get beyond that sort of honeymoon period of being in Tokyo, you're like, all right, well, these things, like some things don't work very well, and the only reason things are functioning and convenient for all the people traveling is because everybody's working so hard to maintain that. So for example, you go to the convenience store and you see, you know, all the great food. Like convenience stores in Japan are amazing, right? But then you see how hard those people have to work to keep that happening. So people are running to stock the shelves and working way harder than they would in Australia at like convenience stores. No offense to anybody in Australia and convenience stores, but you know, let's be honest, they're not. I wouldn't eat a lot of food out of a convenience store in Australia, and it may have changed. I haven't been back in a while, but usually like the standard of food here is so high, but people are working so hard to keep that running and actually be convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's going to be I don't know, that's going to be a reverse culture shock for me.
Yeah.
Going back to Europe and just like the and that comes back also to the fact what some people might ask, like, why are they working so hard?
Yeah.
And now again, when we're at this new unique situation where people are actually allowed to be home, to spend more time with their families, and people might ask, why are they making these choices? But I mean, they're so incredibly proud of every single thing that they do, and their attention to detail is on a level that's not precedented anywhere else. And I think that's going to be really difficult for me. And it is, I've already noticed, like traveling, where you'll be like, well, this is not really up to the standard that I would expect. Why are you not more proud of what you're doing? Because it's not necessarily that I'm hating on the product. It's like, I know you can do better.
Yeah.
Why aren't you? Like, why are you in this position if you don't love it? And even, as you said, like even a convenience store worker. And once again, that's a great profession if you want to get in and you want to, like a lot of part-time workers and so forth. But they're not there just sitting off time. They're really, really keen on making that a great experience for you.
Yeah.
And that's like, and you see that on all parts of life, like, working in a train station or whatever. Every single person you come across, almost, and when you don't, that's what they're really surprised. They steal the day. That's like the only thing you can think about. But in general, all the people you come across, they're incredibly proud and incredibly skilled at what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think like they have a sense of responsibility. I guess they work really hard. There's something to be proud of, the work ethic. Like, I don't think people wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I'd love to be a convenience store worker. I can't wait to start my day to go to the convenience store. I think that
but
people
potentially a convenience store manager,
maybe, or an owner. But that But it's not seen in the same light. I don't think here. It's like, well, I mean, if you had a child and they came to you and they were like, oh, my dream is to be, a shelf stocker at 7-Eleven or something, you might be like, oh, maybe you could reach a little bit higher. But there's no stigma towards it. There's probably more stigma towards, I don't know, English teachers here. I had an ex who really didn't like, she had a big issue with English teachers. So when I was coming back here,
did you ever work as no?
I did, for just as like a casual thing. I do a few lessons here and there, and when I had downtime, when I wasn't working when I first came back. So all right, well, I'll see if I can teach English, and I actually enjoyed it. But there's definitely different sorts for people, and I'm not knocking people who are English teachers. It's just there's people that do it as a career, and there's people that do it for a couple of years that want to come and party. So there's that sort of stigma with a lot of Japanese people here. It's like, all right, well, these people just want to party like crazy and have a good time. I don't blame them. There is that view of that job here, whereas I think you don't get that as a convenience store worker. Although it is changing. There's a lot more foreigners now in convenience stores, whereas maybe 10 years ago there was mainly Japanese people, I think. There's a show called Kekkon Dekinai Otoko. It's like the guy who can't get married. And then they did that first show, it was like 2006 or something like that. Maybe 2009. And then 10 years later, so last year I think it was, they revisited the show. They did a second season of it called, I think it was like Mara Kekkon Dekinai Otoko or something like that. It's like still the guy who can't get married or something like along those lines. In that show you can actually see, and it's pretty obvious because it's kind of part of the show in these small segments, is like he goes into the convenience store, and in the first show the people are Japanese, but in the new show the person is a foreigner. So I think it's kind of a social statement about.
And also, I mean, the population is aging.
Yeah.
So if they're trying to get all the young they won't have enough workers to fill up all the convenience stores.
Yeah.
So that's also a challenge. So they need to rely more in the future on foreign workers on different degree. They need foreign experts as well, and I think that's going to prove a challenge in the future.
Yeah.
In general,
I think they're going to have choices of either open up their borders a bit more, or find other solutions like AI if it becomes a bit more.
That works for certain positions, but not
robots.
Everything. Yeah.
Terminators.
But I mean, I've been working on robots, so it's definitely there, and it's on the horizon. And I think the way the Japanese companies and the society are approaching robotics is quite different from a lot of other societies and companies as well.
Yeah,
they're having a completely it's a staggering difference between Boston Dynamics.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
For instance, and that have a very practical, very practical approach to solving problems, while the robots that I've been working on and around the company that I'm working, like the IBA, for instance, it has a philosophical and emotional approach to it, and it's completely opposites.
Yeah, you've been working on sex robots, haven't you? You can be honest about that.
I mean, I can't disclose that.
Yeah.
But with VR and sex robots, I mean, that's the future.
Yeah, well, that's where we'll all be living soon.
Yeah.
Just in the Matrix. The thing, have you watched the Boston Dynamics videos?
Some.
I don't know why I get this weird conflict of emotion, because in some of them they're testing the stability of the robots, and they kick them over or push them over, and I feel sorry for the robots, but then I also think, well, they're robots, they're just machines, they're designed to do this, they don't necessarily have feelings about this stuff. They
don't have any feelings. I think that's easy to prove at this point. That doesn't mean that they can't have something that would simulate feelings, or maybe potentially even in the future have some kind of a consciousness and have feelings, but at the moment, but I understand.
But I think it is that thing of this human nature of being aggressive towards something and doing harm to something. I have that conflict of why is that person doing that? And then I realize, it's a robot, they're testing their stability. I have to consciously think about what is happening in this video.
Yeah, well, I'd be happy if we could talk about this for 30 minutes alone.
Probably.
But and we're down to but I mean, so we really have to revisit this topic. But I think one of the main reasons is that, as you said, it triggers a natural response, and that's because the robot itself have certain qualities to it and resembles things that you associate to living things.
Yeah.
And that's what triggers the response. And this is super interesting, especially as a designer, to how you can play around with these different triggers and how you can evoke emotional responses. And once again, now we're taking the boss. I mean, I'm not saying that people are not doing similar research in America, but in general, what's exposed to us as consumers or fans are the more practical approaches for robotics over there. While here, we're really, really keen on interested in revisiting and explore this area of emotional responses and relationships to these.
Is that because of the different end goals of companies? Because, and I could be very wrong about this, but it feels like some of the I'm not saying Boston Dynamics or anybody, but some of the practical applications of this in, say, the US of some of these robots would be to help the military.
There's so much money there as well. And once again, we're just speculating.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I would assume that if you want to raise funds to be able to do this as a startup, or and also it's highly. I'm not saying that this is not a highly capitalistic driven market. It is, but I mean, America is the pinnacle of capitalism. So if you want to raise money for a robotics company, it's a lot easy. It's not easy to begin with, but I mean, it's. You can see the full life you can see the end goal, as you said, like you and you can see the application and you can see the need for it. It's much more tangible. While what we're doing in the areas we're exploring to a certain degree, you need more of a philosophical, almost like a gut feeling, this is what we have to do as a human race. In a way, it's almost like SpaceX, or what Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about sometimes, about exploring space. I mean, it's more this almost emotional like drive that drives the exploration, and then in the end it actually feeds back and benefits humanity. But it's hard to put numbers maybe on that this will help drive sales to a certain amount and this will reach certain goals. And I think it's really important that companies are exploring these more philosophical and emotional aspects, because you need these stepping stones. And I think also what's unique in comparison is that some of Japanese companies overall, but also Japanese consumers, they are more open to the idea of buying into a work in progress concept. So they're okay of, like, the first iterations of Aibo was revolutionary at the time, and it's a long time ago they were announced, but they were still quite limited as a product. But still, you had people like completely falling in love with these machines, and even they have dedicated Aibo like graveyards.
Really?
Yes, and ceremonies, and they're burying their Aibos, and there's a huge, like for the original ones, a huge secondhand kind of community where you can like, oh, my Aibo is almost about to die. Let's get like spare parts, and like. They're investing so much time and money into this as well. And that's driven from the emotional point of view. It's not that this robot is doing anything practical. It's not earning them any money. It's not they're doing it purely from an emotional point of view.
Do you think that's a cultural thing as well? I
think so. But and that's also what's great about the market, because it's a great testing ground, and I don't mean that it's all an experiment, but it's a good place to start, because I do think that parts of the studies and parts of the knowledge that are actually that we can gather from this marketplace, and with some of these iterations of the Aibo, for instance, that will be hugely beneficial for humanity in the long run, and for us too, because otherwise you need to start from scratch. When you actually have the need for these, now you can build on and stand on the shoulders of the work that we've been doing for 10 to 15 years, which is not starting from nothing. So, and I think that's the biggest, like, sometimes people look at these things and go like, wow, it's rather limited in its movement. It can't spring and jump up, on the sofa or whatever. But I mean, to be able to get there, we need this iteration. We need to push it forward.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a problem of society these days, is that we're so used to having everything happen instantly. Like, you even look at television, Netflix is a good example. It's like, we can get access to our favorite shows instantly. We can binge watch everything. We don't have to wait a week. We don't have to, we can order delivery. We don't have to wait till, like, or to go get the food. It can all be sorted out instantly. And I suffer from that now, is that I want access to internet, I want access to social media right now. I don't want to wait for it. But if we think about the human evolution, like even as an individual, you don't get born and then you stand up and you can run and do cartwheels and stuff. You have to. I was
going to make the exact same analogy. It's very interesting. But
But we don't see it that way.
And we forget how hard it was. Yeah. And I forget how hard it was to learn English. I mean, I haven't spoken English and read English my entire life. I mean, and once again, I don't remember how it was not to be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why it's so easy to forget and take it for granted.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.